Hello and welcome to a Hearts of Iron 4 guide, a beginner's tutorial for those of you that are brand new to the game. Now this isn't my first time doing a tutorial, I just wish to show you this really quickly. Back in 2023 I made my first and only other tutorial for this game in totality, and this video at this moment in time has got just over 300,000 views. You can see they actually put it on the back end of November 2022. So when it comes to making tutorials, I like to think I know what I'm doing. The difference between then and now is there have been a whole 12 months of game updates, so the tutorial is going to vary slightly. But also, there were hundreds of comments that I got last time. A lot of them were very nice, thanking me, but there were some that said, "Oh, nice tutorial, mate, but I wished you'd done this." And the two most common comments that I got was, one, to break the tutorial down into chapters, so that's what we're going to be doing in this 24 version. And the second thing is, I had no idea that as well as it being a tutorial of, hey, this does this, that does that, people were actually following along what I was doing in the tutorial click for click, because I'm not one of these that rushes through things and skips things out. That said, this is a game that you can't rush and skip things out, okay? If you think, this sounds like too much, I'm going to go and find a half-hour quick start tutorial or something to that effect, all that I'll say is, I'll see you back here in 35 minutes, because the game really is that complex to get your head around. It's a very steep learning curve, but here's the thing. Once you get over that initial hump, that initial steep learning curve, it all falls into place and makes sense. And at that point, you will be able to easily conquer the world, at least playing as Germany versus the AI. I guarantee it. That said, it's very difficult, if not impossible to do. In fact, it's probably impossible for you to do if you try and take over the world, even though you're playing on easy, without having any sort of tutorial. So we're going to go and put that right here, right now. And so, yeah, if you wish to invest your time in this tutorial, I encourage you to follow along. If there's ever a time where I'm just trying to demonstrate something, I will say so that you're not necessarily following along when I'm just showing something for a demonstration purpose. It may even be showing you what not to do. So if that sounds like something, let's go ahead and come across to Steam there. I'll just bring myself back in. It's not that I don't think you know how to start a game from Steam. You know, I'm not hopefully not that insulting to your intelligence. But what I do wish to show is that in Hearts of Iron 4, if you own the DLC, which I do, or you own a subscription to the DLC, they obviously appear here. We're going to turn those off for the purposes of the tutorial. I did this last time, I did this time. The game is complicated enough without trying to mix in things from DLC, because once you get your head around the basic mechanics of the game, by all means turn the DLC on. It adds a lot of depth and a lot of interesting aspects to the game, but it does in turn make it more complicated. I think the game's complicated enough to initially get your head around just the core vanilla game. So we'll click start, we'll click OK. And when it comes in, it doesn't actually load you straight into the game. It loads you into this initial screen here from Paradox. And if we come over to the DLC option here will list all the DLC that you own. And if you come further down, you'll actually get some additional content, such as the historical German portraits. We'll see what that's about in a minute. You've also got some additional music and unit packs. Some of these things come for free with the game or with parts of the game. Some of it is linked in with your DLC, and all your DLC that you buy and your expansion packs are at the top. Again, make sure these are all turned off, yeah? So if you've got one or two of them disabled and the rest enabled, just turn them all on and then turn them all off. That way your game's going to look exactly like mine and it's not going to be too complicated. If you think, oh, well, I'll tell you what, I'll turn them all off, but let's just have the Allied Music radio pack going. Okay, that's obviously a personal choice, but I'm going to leave it all off so that my game can look like yours and hopefully won't risk any copyright police stuff. Coming down to your playsets then, the last thing before we get going, this will include any mods you've downloaded from the Steam workshop. So, you know, people, you know what I'm talking about. On Steam, you've got the workshop over here where various people create various mods for various games. Hearts of Iron 4 is no different in that respect. So if you do have anything here or not, if you're new to the game and you haven't added anything yet, this list is probably empty. But I'm going to say, whether it's empty or not, make sure you turn everything off just like before so we have the base game, and that's it. Last but not least, if we come to game settings here, you'll have a choice to go either full screen, borderless full screen, or window. My preference is generally to go full screen, although sometimes borderless full screen depends if you intend on doing a cast or not at some point. And then here as well, you've got full screen resolution. I personally like the 2560 by 1440 resolution. I lazily just refer to this as 2K. Usually I play at 4K because I'm not always trying to do a video. But the only reason I'm drawing attention to this is the game sort of tries to make you quit. If you get you have to quit the game to restart the resolution and so forth. So get that set right there. Once that's done to your liking, come back to the home thing and we're going to press play. I'm recording this video on the very back end of February 2024. So everything you see will be relative to that. Okay, the game sounds. I'm just going to mute my game sounds one sec because, again, I'm not entirely sure where we lay with regards to the copyright on the music. We'll put that right once we're in-game. First thing that you do on this menu, come over to your options page, and I just want to show you here the UI scaling line. It's there currently under the experimental tab. I have mine set to 1.4x. Ordinarily, I would not, and I think by default this is set to 1.0 or 1.2. Perhaps somebody can correct me on that. The issue with this is the UI scaling stands for user interface scaling, for those that have not heard that before. And that basically makes all your icons a little bit bigger, all your text messages a bit bigger, all your buttons a little bit bigger. Now, personally, I prefer to have things a little bit smaller so that more things can fit on the screen at the same time. The problem is, when you're trying to do a tutorial, if you make things too small, people will struggle to see it. So I'm actually going to crank this up to 1.5x for the purposes of this tutorial. Now, when I click OK, it's going to say you need to restart the game in order for this to take effect. So we're going to do that. And again, this is just to show you that this is the sort of thing that you want to get done. And you want to get it done the first time so that once we get into the actual game, you're not there looking at it and then thinking, oh, actually, the size looks wrong. So let's get back into the game there. We'll press play, and now it's going to load up. All right. Come on, come on, come on. There we go. Okay, so we're going to go single player game for the purposes of the tutorial, and I recommend you always play single player until you've comfortably gotten the hand of this game. If you try and play multiplayer before you've really got the mechanics of the game down, they'll just wipe the floor with you, and you'll think, oh, what a shit game that is. You'll never play it again. So let's come to single player, new game. You've got two choices here between 36 and August 39. That's obviously the outbreak or the eve of the outbreak of war. January 36 gives you time to set your country up in the way that you like, as opposed to the way things were on the sort of brink of war, as it were. If you load that up, you're not technically at war, but you've got the decision right there to start the war, certainly if you're playing as Germany, which is what we're going to do. However, we're going to go over to January 36 because this is going to allow us to set things up the way that we want, and with it being a tutorial, give me a little bit more chance to explain how things work as well. So we'll select the scenario on the left, okay, and here we've got the different countries now to choose from. Now remember when I was showing you one of the things under the DLC and it had the German portraits, and you can see there that by not enabling it, one or two of the characters over there are greyed out or blacked out. And in this case, the guy with the tash is one such of the people. So you're saying, why are you calling him the guy with the tash? Why not use his proper name? And the answer is because I think that although this is only a game, even so, there are only so many times in any given video that the caster can actually use some of these more controversial characters. So if I do mention his name once or twice, it'll be fine. I think to bang on and on about it, the red flags at YouTube will start quivering, and that's the last thing that I want. Also notice, though, on the very right extreme here, we've got other countries. So these will be your, let's just call them main countries that were more pivotal when it came to things in World War II. That isn't to say if you lived in Romania, your country had sod all to do with the war. If you were there during that time, you were in the thick of it, trust me. But in terms of, there only being 7 countries that can fit on this screen, if you wish to play as Romania or Iceland or some other country that's not on this list, by all means go ahead and click on that. And again, they may be less significant in terms of what the history books say for the war, but for the people that lived there, it certainly weren't insignificant at the time. Obviously, if you lived in somewhere like, just thinking somewhere like Cuba or somewhere like that, they probably were not the most active group of people in the world when it came to World War II. But of course, I'm starting to reach a little bit. So let's just go with Germany there. We'll make a start. And that brings you to this screen, which almost looks like we're already in the game. The options here are absolutely crucial to understand. So we've got your difficulty settings here from civilian that go all the way up to the elite. Now, I just really quickly want to take this opportunity to draw your attention to a concept you'll hear again and again in this game. Whether you watch my tutorials or anybody else's, you're going to hear them talk about modifiers. And if there's one thing that you take away from this video before you click off, it has to be modifiers. And modifiers are adjusted by all these things you see here. So, for example, if you see there, under player political power gain, we see there's a 50% gain in green. Green is always good, at least in regards to something that you're doing. So to have 50% additional political power is good. We'll see why once we get into the tutorial. Next line down, we see supply consumption is actually a negative value, negative 10%, but it's still a good thing, right? Because if your army, however big it is, uses 10% less supply, even though it's the same size army, that's obviously a good thing. Now, this may be seen as, by some people, as cheating a little bit because it makes the game easier to play, and that's obviously so. Which is why, even if we enable Iron Man mode, which prevents you from being able to cheat. So Iron Man mode is, if we turn that off, what that means is we can save the game, make a decision, realize, I don't like the way that the game's going, and we can actually load back to that previous save game. So we may say, we'll attack Russia. And then like 6 months in, we think, maybe not. So we can load the game as it was before we decided to attack. If you enable Iron Man mode, you no longer have that option. You are forced to play the game in the way that you've chosen to play it right up until the game ends, or you simply decide to start a brand new game from scratch. Either way, this is the way that you have to play in order to gain achievements. But notice this, on civilian mode, if you look down here, you cannot get achievements. You actually have to turn the difficulty up to the regular difficulty setting. Now we can get achievements. The regular difficulty setting is the way that the game's intended to be played. I will tell you that for nothing. Iron Man mode. And then the last one here, we've been over Iron Man mode. Historical AI focuses. And all of that means is we're going to be playing, in this case, for the tutorial as Germany. I highly recommend you do. Not only are they the most fun country to play because you're basically attacking, but they've actually got a real good balance of industrial power, military power, and you've got really good generals as well as field marshals. So if you're somebody that, likes attacking and let's face it, most of us that play strategy games do enjoy the idea of attacking. Most of us, although there may be some that like your tower defense kind of games where you actually sit back and try and wall up a base as hordes of enemies attack you. But of course, if you like that, you can play one of the other countries, can't you? But in this case, historical AI focuses back to the topic at hand, means we're playing as Germany, we're the human player. All the other countries are going to be played for by the AI. That includes allies, or at least from our point of view, allies. I guess, what did the Germany call their friends allies? I don't know. Or the Axis. Let's just say Italy. So even though Italy will be our friend as we're playing as Germany, it will obviously be controlled by the AI. But so will the other countries. That stands to reason, right? America, Great Britain, France, Poland. They will all be controlled by the AI as well as all the other countries. By enabling the historical AI focuses, all of these countries, as best as is possible, are going to play the game as the historical narrative of World War II went. So that what officially happened, according to the history books, whether it's true or it's not is a side issue, but what officially happened, according to the history books, all of these different countries, the AI is going to do its best to follow that route. And you may say, well, what do you mean it's going to do its best? Why doesn't it just do it? And the answer is because we could upset that, right? So, as we know, obviously, the UK remained under its own dominion. You know, it was not invaded by Germany for the entire war. They didn't even try. You know, they took over a couple of the islands down here, which are not actually marked on this game, but the island of Jersey and so on, that's right off the coast of France. Why it belongs to the UK, don't ask me, but it is what it is. That was about as close as Germany got to conquering the UK. Now, if we knock UK out the wall, in other words, if we invade the UK, and we will do this in this series of tutorials, so make sure to subscribe and stick with us, we will take them out of the game, and by extension, the rest of official history is unable to take place in the way that it should because we've got rid of UK, right? But because we've got rid of the UK, that's also going to affect other things further afield, although the knock-on effect may not be as dramatic as literally not having any UK anymore. But, for example, the Americans can't then land over here at some point after Pearl Harbor because they no longer have a place to land to. But they will still try as best as they can follow the history, even though we've basically prevented it from happening exactly as it was. So far, too much time spent on this. We are going to play as civilian. Difficulty because it is a tutorial, and we will certainly not be playing a perfect game in this tutorial, because if I was to play the perfect game, or as near as dang it would actually make for a very boring tutorial. So I'm going to try and make this a little bit more fun, a little bit more interactive for you, because otherwise, you know, it's just going to be incredibly dry. The end result is you'll, at the end of the tutorial, not only will you know exactly how to play this game, and not only will you be in a great position of dominating all of Europe, we'll see if we can get Russia as well, we'll just have to see how long it takes, but in knowing how to play and in controlling all of that, you've basically won. It's just basically up to you to see how and when you're going to take on the United States. That's basically going to be up to you. Iron Man modes we're going to turn off. And the reason we're turning Iron Man mode off is so we can save the game and save our progress and come back to it should we need for future episodes. So I encourage you to do that. At the end of every episode, when I say, you know, thanks for watching, hope to see you again soon kind of thing, save the game, and every time you save it, just say, you know, part 1, part 2, whatever part we happen to be on, and then that way, when you come back to a future episode, it will be really easy for you to just carry on playing from where you left off. So I think that's a real nice long intro. Hopefully you're well up to that, and we'll see if we can't help 300,000 people more with this through 2024. So let's go ahead and begin. Bing! I love that war bell clang there that clings. So we've got the sounds on. I'm going to go full blast just temporarily for the sound. You've got this little music icon here. Click on that, and then there's your pause button. So you can actually pause the music or skip tracks and do all of that good stuff from this little menu here. Obviously, the reason I'm pausing the music, like it says, for copyright reasons. But if you like the music or not, you know, knock yourself out. I recommend if you are trying to follow me on this, that if you have 2 monitors, that's really easy. Just stick this video on one monitor and play the game on the other. I'm not going to be rushing through this, so you don't have to worry about trying to slow things down. The other option is, of course, put me on an iPad or a tablet, phone, whatever you've got to hand, so that you can play the game on one and you have some other screen to watch this tutorial. Phone might be a little bit small on the screen, but, for you young'uns, you've got good eyes, hopefully, so should be good. Alright, so here we are. We're in the main game now, and we'll just quickly go over the controls. We've got scroll wheel to zoom in and out, and you can middle click, which is the mouse wheel, so you can click that down and literally drag the world underneath your cursor to just scroll around the earth, right? The game always starts paused, and again, we've started 1st of January 36. If you remember, there was that other option to start in August 39. If we had done that, it would also be paused. It would just obviously be August 39. We'd also see a few more divisions on the field. So that's right there. We'll take a quick look at manipulating things. So I encourage you, just make sure the game stays paused. So I'll just tell you right now, the spacebar controls the pause, unpause. So I'm not going to press it, but just make sure you don't catch spacebar. You've also got these pluses and minuses here. This controls the speed. Now, I prefer using the keyboard shortcut plus minus. So those are the 3 most important controls in this game. Spacebar to pause, unpause, plus and minus to adjust your speed. I use the plus and minus on the numpad to do that. And so, if you only take one thing away from this game, it's those 3 controls. So with that said, keeping the game paused, and you can follow along at this if you like, we're going to take... Excuse me one sec. There we go. We're going to take a look at real basic unit manipulation, how to control individual units, right? So we're going to zoom in, and if we zoom out, notice how all of these units there seem to combine. What are those units? Well, those are actually divisions. Each one of these is a division. So there, if we zoom in, notice they pop apart. Now that's just the user interface trying to keep the screen as clean as possible, as opposed to what's genuinely going on. You can see if we zoom in, this here being the maximum zoom, these units are actually in different counties or different tiles. So each one of these areas here is a tile, right? So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but then you've got like an entire country here, or a different country, in this case, the Netherlands. So if we zoom in, I just want to show you that this division here, this figurine, if we click on it, the one that is at Munster, and again, we're paused, so although we'll be giving orders, we won't actually be unpausing the game to allow it to take place. So if we select it by left clicking and right click to give the order, if we was to unpause the game now, that unit would walk from Munster over here. Now you may say the unit, the division, what exactly is that? Looks like one guy with a gun. It does, but this is actually an entire infantry division. It is represented by one guy with a gun. So this right here is thousands of people. If you want to get exactly into it, we'll take a closer look at this in a future episode. But for now, I just want to show you that each one of these figurines is actually made up of all of these things that you see on the right. We've got an officer that's commanding, I guess a major general or a general major. We've got 12 pieces of artillery. We've got 910 weapons. We've got 30 pieces of support equipment, as well as, take a look up here, a total of 9,600 troops. So all of that is contained within this one figurine. So sometimes I may say, oh, we'll move this guy over here, that guy there, because I'm looking at the figurine, but I'm actually referring to an entire division when I say this. If we want to stop the order that we've just given him, we've got this little red circle here with the line through it, or the shortcut key H. Now H is incredibly useful. I guess it stands for halt, right? Halt! So there we go. We've got him there. That was so pathetic, wasn't it? Right. So with that guy there, we've given him the orders. We've told him to stop. So now what we're going to do is deselect the unit because, well, we want to do something else. The easiest way to deselect a unit or come out of anything that you're doing is press the escape button. Now, you could just left click somewhere else, but of course, sometimes you risk accidentally giving an order that you don't intend with a left click. So again, the easiest way to do this with a unit or a menu, whether it's aircraft, whether it's ships, whatever, is escape. So I'm going to press escape now, and you see that is the easiest way to deselect. Now, if you press escape once too many, you get this menu here, but it's easy to get rid of that. Just hit escape again. So again, escape really is your friend in this game. What we're going to do now is just, again, with it paused, show you one other little trick with this, and that is the shift key. And shift allows you to stack up orders. So I'm going to hold the shift key down. I've got the unit selected, and I'm going to right click to give an order. So I'm going to go here, then here, then here. Then we'll come all the way down to here. Then we'll come back over here, and then here, and then back to where we started. There we go. So I can let go of shift now. So if I was to unpause the game, makes sense. This entire figurine, or this division, is going to follow this route round and get back to where it started. May take several days to complete that. I'm not entirely sure how long it would take, but you can imagine marching an infantry division. What's that? Probably 100, maybe even 200 miles. I can't tell you exactly. Is obviously going to take some time. Now, if we come over here just real quick, here we've got a truck. I don't know if you can see that stood right next to this guy. This is a motorized division belonging to the SS of all things. If we were to give this truck the same order, as in the same amount of distance, it stands to reason the truck is going to be able to cover that distance much more quickly than men are on foot. And again, we'll take a look at exactly how fast different things could move at a later time. But I just want to show you this is the basic way that you can move individual units around. And again, I'm just going to press H to cancel that. Now, most strategy games that you play, real-time strategy games, is a case of you'll click units like this, and you can click and drag a box using your left mouse button on the background. So what you'll do is you'll select a bunch of units like this, and then typically you'd right-click and you'd say, right, you go there. And then you say, right, well, we've got a bunch more guy, another guy here. You go there. There was this guy here. We'll send him over there. And that's typically how most strategy games are played, certainly when you're trying to micro stuff. If you do that in this game, you will lose. That's not to say that you can't micro this game. You can, and you should, especially when it comes to maneuvering tanks around and stuff like that. But when it comes to fighting a war, and bearing in mind we're not war yet, it's January 36, but when it comes to fighting a war, you need to make use of armies, and you need to make use of front lines. And you may say, well, hang on, what are these armies? Well, they're not. They're individual divisions. A division by itself is not an army. 3 divisions by themselves is not an army. But you combine those 3 divisions into one group, that now becomes the army. And combining divisions into armies is what makes this game very different to a lot of other strategy games you will play. But those of you that are into your history or that have, served in the military, you will say, well, that's obvious. You've got your battalions. They go together to make a division. You get your divisions together. They go into your army. And you get several armies together. And those fall under the command of a field marshal. And that's exactly how this game works. So I'm just going to halt all of these. And the easiest way for me to do this is I'm going to press escape. I'm going to select the entire area where we had these troops with the orders. You can see the individual orders that all of these have been given. And I'm just going to press the H key to halt them. Okay. So if you've just been watching up until this point, now is the time that I need you to follow along what I'm doing, because we're going to create our front line. Okay. So we're going to create a front line versus Poland. So the first thing that you need to understand is the front line is only ever, drumroll, at the front. So drawing a front line is something that I find can be easy to confuse people or put people off when they very first see this game. but once you've played the game for more than, I don't know, certainly once you get to the end of this tutorial, it'll just make perfect sense. So here's Poland in red, here's Germany, and we've also got this little bit of Germany here. After the World War I treaties and so forth, Poland took control of this area. Germany no longer had a contiguous connection to this area over here. I think they called it East Prussia, but, you know, don't quote me on that. In any case, this area requires its own little front line. That's what we're going to do now. So in order to do this, you do not do the following. So again, don't necessarily copy this bit. I'm just going to show you. So typically you'd go, all right, I see. Well, we're this sort of darker area here. They're this red area. So I need to put this guy, I don't know, let's put him there. I've only got 4 guys. We'll bring this guy. We'll pop him there. We'll bring this guy. We'll put him there. And then we've got this horse cavalry unit here. We'll put him there. And there we go. So we'll unpause. These will all move into those positions and Bob's your uncle, right? No, that's not how to play this game. So, again, I'm going to select all of these, press H to halt. Now what I'm going to do is place them into an army. So you see we've got these 2, what look like blank portraits down here. The smaller one on the right-hand side is where you stick all your armies, your divisions. The larger portrait on the left is later on, and we will take a look at that before the episode is out, where we have the field marshals. So what we're going to do is just draw a box around all of these guys. Right click onto this box here. And now we've got our first army. And if you take a look, well, it's going to be up there for you. It's called Army Number 1. So this is our first army. We don't yet have a commander because we haven't assigned one. But all of these divisions, the 3 infantry together with the 1 cavalry division, now form an army. So again, I'm thinking, oh, I don't want to click on this thing. Hit escape. Right, deselect. There we go. So the next thing I want you to notice is there's this little red exclamation mark to the left of all of these divisions. And if you take a look at what it says on the tooltip, the division belongs to an army, but it doesn't have any orders. And that's because they're just standing around, right? They're not doing anything, which isn't necessarily a problem. Although, if you're fighting a war, it's not necessarily ideal to have a bunch of divisions just stood there not doing anything. We aren't yet at war, so it doesn't really matter. But I've just decided, you know what? We're going to get these guys on a front line between what is here, Germany, and what's here, Poland. Just before we do that, we're going to give them a commander. So I'm going to select on the portrait here. Notice that now selects the entire army, which includes the 4 divisions that we've assigned to it. So they're all been selected. If I was to right click on the screen now, so let's just demonstrate there, notice that we've given an order for them all to move to this single point. And again, this is a terrible way to play this game. So unless you're just literally trying to move an army from one part of the map to the other for, you know, you're just trying to reassign them to a different front or whatever, that's about the only time I can ever think that you would want to give an order like this. So again, H to stop. So with them all selected, and we've got this blank portrait here, we're going to click here where it says click to assign, and this is going to allow us to assign them a commanding officer. Okay, so Army 1 that we've just created, that so far has 4 divisions in, are going to be commanded by, and this loads up this screen here to choose a commander. Now, you need to understand all of these guys already work for you. All of them. So it is not a case of, oh, you need to save up experience points and then you can hire one of these. Or it's going to cost you money if you hire one. Or it's somehow going to reduce or cause a negative thing to happen elsewhere in the game. It doesn't. All of these guys already work for you. So it's just a case of picking whichever one that you want. Now, generally speaking, your best generals are at the top of the list, and the further you go down, the more unsuitable that the general becomes, as in the worst. If you take a look at the skill level on the left, they gradually decrease until down here we're finally at level 1. Now, as we scroll even further down, at the very bottom of this list, we've got the most unsuitable people to command of all. And these are actually field marshals, and that's not to say that they're not good at commanding many armies, but they're certainly not the type of people that you would use to command a division. it's not to say they can't command a division, but it's just a terrible way to play. It would kind of be like using the chief executive of a big, or let's figure it a different way. It would kind of be like using the commanding general-in-chief of the US military, whatever you would call it, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, to arrange who's on guard duty that day at a certain base. It's like, it's not that they can't do it, but it's a complete waste of their skills. So ideally, we're looking for a general. So you may say, well, easy, just pick top at list, right? Why not if you're saying that's the best? Well, yes, okay, but if we take a look at here, many of these generals, at least in Germany's case, are actually very good at armor. Rommel, of course, Desert Fox, tank guy. Manstein, tank guy, you know, so-called father of the whole, together with Guderian here. The whole Blitzkrieg thing, and that was their thing, all to do with army. See, they've all got these little armor officer things. Guderian's also got this panzer leader thing. But if we scroll down to the next guy at the top, General Bock, let's just call him. He doesn't have a panzer icon. You see, he's cautious. He's a harsh leader. Those have, again, slightly different modifiers. Take their look at the planning speed. Again, we'll not go over all of these, but just to show you what these things mean. Planning speed, minus 20%. Chance to get wounded in combat, minus 50%. So in other words, it's going to take 20% longer for this guy to conduct a plan, but in return, it's 50% less chance to get wounded, which is obviously a great thing, right? If we come over here, harsh leader. So he's going to push people a little bit harder once the attack begins, which obviously means they're going to be better at attacking, more aggressive, but it's going to take them 10% longer to recover at the end of the day. Makes sense, right? Because he's probably not let them have any sleep. So this is probably a nice guy to start with for this area. And again, we're not wasting any of the panzer traits on an army that, as you see, has no panzers. We've just got infantry and 1 cavalry. So let's put Bock. We'll just click to assign. Now he controls this division. Now we're free to change this as many times as you like. So if you think, oh no, I want somebody else, you just click on the portrait and you select somebody else. And then you get that new general in, and Bock is free to be used elsewhere. You have to wait like a couple of weeks until Bock becomes available elsewhere, but he is available. So that right there will just have Bock selected. So now if I press escape, remember to deselect everything. If I choose Bock, he now, all of the divisions he controls is selected. So what I'm going to do is create the front line versus Poland. That's really easy to do. You've got this icon here that's called front line, or I much prefer using the shortcut down there, which you see is Z. I'll tell you this right now. Z is probably the button that I use the most after spacebar on this game. You'll find yourself using it all the time, and thankfully to do an attack command or an attack order, you use the X key. So Z and X, really useful. So let's press Z, or click on this button here. I'll just click it on this one time. And if we zoom out, you'll see we get these yellow flashing lines all the way around our border, okay? We do not get a yellow flashing line between Czechoslovakia and Hungary or anything like that, because those are not countries that we control, or not countries that we have an alliance with, at least not yet, that allows us to put troops into their territory. So obviously we want to do a front line here with Poland. Now you may say, well, hang on, I want a front line all the way around. I want the front line to go from here to here, but why is it not including this area here? And the answer is because it's a different country. This is a front line between Germany and Poland. This here is a front line between Germany and I think it's Latvia, or you know, someone's going to shoot us down for that, but it's one of the little less. Oh, Lithuania, there we go. Latvia is the next one along. Nearly right. So it's one or the other. And you may say, well, I want both. Well, if you want both, you would have to create a new army and then give that new army an order. Or you may say, okay, well, I'll have to take one of the infantry divisions away from Bock. So let's do that. I'll just demonstrate this. So let's select Bock. We're going to press Z, or press this front line, and click on this area here. So there is our first front line, and you can see it's drawn on the screen very helpfully. And you can just about see there, 4 divisions dash Army 1, and that's who makes up this. If you don't like the colour, you can change it here, and I'll say you may think, oh, well, who cares about the colour? Well, I generally think who cares about the colour, doesn't matter. Except when you've got lots of different armies next to one another, sometimes you'll see, hang on, both of those armies are red. I can't really tell who's who, so you can come in here and quickly change the colour, say, to green, and there you can see it updates the frontline colour as well as the insignia here. And again, you know, you can change this to your heart's content. The troops or the army couldn't care less what colour that you assign them or what insignia you give them or what name you give them, okay? They couldn't care less. Don't think like in real life, oh, well, it's going to hurt morale if we change the insignia too much and the colour or the names shifted around. They won't feel like the unit has any sort of a historical tradition. They couldn't care less in this game, all right? Give them whatever you like. Personally, I just roll with the default unless there's a specific reason to change the colour, i.e., you know, the colours clash. You may be somebody who likes to be a little bit more organised and think, right, well, I'm going to let everybody have whatever colour they want except red, and I'm going to save red colours for my armoured panzer divisions. That would be a good way to quickly see, you know, especially from a zoomed out view, whereabouts your tanks are. Something you may wish to think about, but yeah, it just depends how organised you are. Okay, so let's press escape. So Bok now has the front line covered. If we was to unpause this game now, he's going to move these divisions round, all 4 of them, in whatever way he sees fit. In fact, let's go ahead and do that. So with this order given, let's unpause the game. And I realise there's a few other things that we need to address, which we will do, which is why I'm saying this is a less than perfect playthrough of the game, because I need to try and show you some things. Okay, pause. Oh no, he's moving one more guy. He's moving the cavalry division over, the horse. So you can see the animation of the horse moving. He can see the hours ticking by. We're on the minimum speed here. Let's just press once. But as soon as he gets there, pause. Okay, so here we are at 4 p.m. on the 2nd of January. So we've got our front line between Germany and Poland for this little section here. But of course, no front line between Germany and this yellow country here. So what we need to do, on what I'm going to show you here, is how you can take one division away from an army and give it to a new army. It makes sense to pick this guy because he's the closest to this border anyway. So what I'm going to do, rather than selecting them all, which is obviously not what I want, I'm going to press escape. I'm just going to select this one guy. You can draw a box around him or just directly click on him. So you can see here, it selects the one guy, but it shows us the division up there, shows us the divisions that he's part of within Army 1. But with this, just this one guy selected, I'm going to right click on this portrait over here, the blank one, to create another army. Remember, Field Marshals to the left. That's not what we're doing yet. We're just creating a new army. And so right click there. Now look at this. Bok's only controlling 3 divisions, right? Because we've taken one away from him. There's a new army now that's so far just got 1 division in, which you can have. You can have an army with just 1 division. It's not necessarily the best way to roll, but it's possible. And so what we'll do now is give this new division a new commander. So we'll come over here to assign him a new commander, and we'll pick somebody else. Now look at this. General Maximilian von Weichs. I don't know. I'm just gonna, let's just go with General Max, okay? So if we scroll, he's pretty near the top of the list. He doesn't have a panzer icon, but he does have a cavalry officer leader, and well, why not? Let's give him that, right? So we'll give him control of this army. Now we've got this exclamation mark again, because of course we haven't yet given General Max any order. The unit was previously belonging to Bok, and Bok had given him an order. But now that that division is no longer part of Bok's army, Bok's just controlling these 3 guys. This guy no longer has an order. So we'll select General Max, and we'll say, right, press Z, or press the front line button, and now you make a front line here between Germany this country over here. I keep wanting to say Latvia, so apologies for that. The yellow country, we'll just go with that. So now when I unpause the game, two things are going to happen. First of all, General Max is going to reposition his infantry unit here to wherever he thinks he can best cover this front line. Now you can see he's pretty much outnumbered, but he's still going to position the unit to wherever he thinks best. I'm going to guess it's probably going to be this tile here, or maybe even this tile here, but I'm guessing probably this tile. The other thing that's going to happen is General Bock, because he no longer has 4 people covering the front, but he's now only got 3, he's going to have to move some of his divisions round. So he's basically got fewer divisions to cover the same length, so he's going to have to space them out a bit more. So I'm going to press escape. Let's actually select Bock's army so we can see what orders he gives. So 3, 2, 1, let's unpause. Is anybody moving? Well, apparently not. And it's because actually, if we take a look at Bock's guys, they're already pretty spaced out. We've got 1 division fully on the left. I hate when examples like that fall through. I kind of thought maybe this guy would nudge up a little bit to the end, but they're actually fairly evenly spaced out when it comes to against Poland. I did expect this guy to move north. He didn't. Oh well. But what I want to show you now is if we take a look here underneath Bock, there's this little, underneath the numbers where it says 3 out of 24, we've also got this little graph. And it's currently, well, it's almost half green. I don't think it's quite. And General Max is somewhat more than half green. And so what this means is your general, whatever order you've given him, so in this case we've said create a front line between here and there and hold that front line. We've not given an order to attack. We've just said set up a front line and hold it. That graph shows us how confident the general is that he's able to do that. So ideally we want everything to be really, really green. If everything is more red than green, basically you're going to lose. He's not going to be able to hold that line, especially if the enemy decides to attack. So how do we increase the green then? The easiest answer is just give him more stuff, more divisions. So pressing escape to deselect. I'm going to come over here just to demonstrate that we could use this division, but we're going to pick another one. Let's come over here. See this infantry guy stood on Munster, right? Just a solitary division. I'm going to select that and I'm going to right click onto Bock's portrait and watch what happens when I do this. Bock now has 4 divisions again. He did have 3. He's now controlling this division. So if I press escape and we'll just unpause for a few seconds. Unpause. Look at that division go marching. If we draw a box around it, we can see exactly where he's going to go. Box actually ordered him over here. Now, I'm going to pause it there because there is no physical connection. And if you are following along, just go ahead and give that division to Bock like we just did. See, he's going to take this infantry unit all the way over to this point here, Koslin. The reason he can't march him all the way across to over here, which is where we want, is because there's no physical connection between mainland Germany and this other part of Germany here. There's this swath of Poland that's in the way. So the only way to get that division from where we are to where it needs to be is to come to the nearest harbour, in this case Koslin, and he will take then the division out onto a convoy and he will bring him out through the sea. There's this other little harbour over here at Königsberg, I think it says, and then that division is then going to be placed where it needs to be. Now remember, all of that happens by itself because we didn't tell the division to go all the way over there, but we told the division, hey, you go work for Bock. Bock has an order, hey, you hold this front line, and so Bock is going to bring and position everybody where he needs. And again, the more divisions we give to Bock, the more he's going to take under his control and he will position them all there. And eventually, he would have enough where he thinks, actually, if this was a fight, we can not only hold the line 50-50, but I think we can win. What's actually interesting here is General Max is actually somewhat confident that his solitary infantry division there could hold the line. So you may say, well, hang on a minute, how's that possible? How can a general with only one division hold the line when clearly he's up against 4 enemy divisions? I can see a 1, 2, 3, 4. And the answer is that those enemy divisions he will have identified as being weaker than him. So remember, this one figurine is not one guy versus 4 guys, but this one figurine, as we saw, was almost 10,000 men. I think it said 9,600 men. Now, these divisions over here may be much smaller. In fact, let's take a look at this. If we see down there, there's between 2 and 16 battalions of infantry guys, but there doesn't seem to be any artillery with these soldiers from Lithuania, nor does there seem to be support equipment or anything else. So potentially that's why. And again, I wouldn't necessarily recommend attacking with this, but he certainly feels like he could hold the line, which is all that we've asked him to do. So I'm going to unpause the game. And we'll see this division move over, and I'm just going to demonstrate this, and we'll pause it once he's been positioned on the other side, and then I think we will have made a good start into this game when it comes to issuing orders. So there he is. He's at Koslin. Remember, he needs to be over here. Now, I didn't make him go in that boat. I just happened to click on him at the same instant he boarded the boat. That was unfortunate. But what I'm trying to show you here now is, although our division looks like it's out at sea, which it is, it's actually on board this little convoy ship here. So, again, I'm going to unpause. And again, the figurine is representative of, right, there's not actually a single ship here. In fact, if you did want to know how many ships are represented by this, we come over here to the convoy menu where it says at the top of the screen there, convoys. We have 200 convoys in total. We're currently using 9 of them. And if you scroll down what we're using them for, you see for transferring troops, 4 out of 4. There's also 5 being used elsewhere for supply. But the point there being, this one, or what looks like one ship, is actually 4 ships. Just like, you know, one soldier figurine is actually, you know, thousands of men. So let's carry on unpausing. I'm just going to press the plus button to speed things up a little bit. We see the ship sailing into port. You can't choose the exact direction which the ship takes to get there. You may say, well, why did he go from here up there and then back? It's just representative. It's just like a graphic, okay? The ship did go from there to there in the most efficient route possible. So now I've just paused it, but let's slow time right down and unpause. Now you can see Bok with his 4th division again instead of 3. Obviously a little happier. Now once he finally gets into position, watch what happens to Bok's graph. So let's speed up time a little bit. There he is. Divisions in position. Look underneath Bok. Green. It's still not quite 50-50, but it's very close. It's much more than it was before. So what I'm going to do is just select 2 more divisions just to show this. So we'll go with, let's go with this division that's near Wilhelmshaven and this one here at Hamburg. I held shift down. So just like we could hold shift to stack orders, if I left click and then hold shift and left click, it selects them both. And I'm going to right click onto Bok. And you can see he's already happier knowing he's going to have this. And so now when we unpause, you already know what's going to happen. These 2 divisions are going to be marched off, get aboard a boat, and join the front line. Whoops. Last thing I want to do before we end the video is combine these 2 guys to form our, or to make use of the Field Marshal. So I'm going to left click on Bok, and remember that selects him and his entire army, in this case Army 1, and I'm going to right click on this larger portrait here that's currently blank. And so now you can see Bok is now a part of this. Now there is currently no Field Marshal in place, so just like when we assign the generals, we need to assign a Field Marshal. So I'm going to left click on the portrait here, and what I really want you to take away, we'll actually go for this top guy here, this Rundstedt guy, is remember we were talking about bonuses and modifiers. Well, we were talking about modifiers, let's be clear on that. See here, this Field Marshal von Rundstedt. If we take a look here, he's got a level 3 for attack. Kluger here has actually got a level 4. But this guy's got a level 3 for attack. He's got a level 2 for defense. He's got 3 here for skill and planning. And he's got a level 2 here for supply consumption. So, this Field Marshal, everybody who's underneath him is going to have their attack increased by 7.5%. And they're going to have their supply consumption reduced by 5%. In other words, these are all good traits, but the point is, if we was to select this Field Marshal, because he's a level 4 for attack instead of a level 3, he's actually going to boost by 10% instead of 7.5%. So these are all good things, and depending on exactly what role you want for different commanders, you can start and see now, well, hang on, this Field Marshal Walter Mördl, he's better on defense, look, and that's true. He's a level 4 instead of a level 2. So if you were just trying to hold the front lines somewhere and you're not necessarily thinking about attacking per se, maybe to put those armies under this Field Marshal would make more sense, and I would agree. I'm going to go with Rundstedt because he's like, he's a pretty good all-rounder, so let's go with that guy. And remember now, so Rundstedt, if we select now, has control of Bock. So Bock's army is under the control of Rundstedt. So now I'm also, let's press escape. So you can see here the pictures, there's actually a gap in between Bock and this guy here. It's a very small gap, but there's a gap. So you can see how this guy is connected with the Field Marshal, but this guy is not. So what I'm going to do now is assign this guy over to the Field Marshal as well, exactly the same as before. So press escape to deselect everything, left click on this guy to select him, right click on top of the Field Marshal. Do not right click on top of the other general, that will just reassign the units from one general to another. We want him to go to the Field Marshal. So we're going to, with him selected, right click, and now notice they're all together. So now if I press escape and select the Field Marshal, look at this. I've selected both of the generals. Now you may say, all right, sweetheart, she's come to say hello. So you may say, well, what's the point in doing that? Why would you do this? And the answer is, and this is again what's crucial to understand about this game. So our individual division here, or here, or this cavalry unit here inflicts a certain amount of damage, whatever that value happens to be. And again, if you want to know the specifics, we'll take a look more detail in future. But if you click here, for example, soft attack for this cavalry division is currently 41.1. That's the attack value, okay? Now, because that cavalry division is under the command of General Bock, remember what we said for this guy? If we take a look, show the leader details here for General Bock, his attack level is +5, which in this case is 12.5%. Okay, every sort of level accounts for 2.5%. Same here. That's why defensive level 3 is 7.5. But the point I'm trying to make, I sort of feel like I'm getting lost in the detail here, that this single division that is capable of inflicting 41.1 soft attack is going to be enhanced by 12.5% because they're working for a really good aggressive general. But on top of that 12.5%, they're also working for this Field Marshal who is able to give them and everybody else who's under him an additional 7.5% attack. So the exact same infantry division or the exact same cavalry division or the same panzer division or whatever it happens to be, you combine these two generals of 12.5% plus 7.5%, you literally have the same group of people inflicting 20% more damage than were they just working by themselves. And obviously, that applies for every single division that's under these commanders. So if you add 20% across the board for division after division after division after division, and they're all attacking, you have a huge advantage over somebody that either isn't using these generals or that is from a country that doesn't have very good generals to begin with. And one such example is Russia. After the Great Purge, they lose almost all their good generals. So, you know, they're not very good at commanding. So that right there, I think, is a good place to end. The next episode, we'll take a look at dealing with some of these notifications. So, aside from asking you to subscribe and all of that sort of good stuff, leave a like if you found this useful, is when we're done, hit escape, and now we are going to make use of the save game and just call it there. I've called it Hearts of Iron, so I'll just type it in just to show you. Call it what you like. Obviously, the default name is the country together with the date, but I'm just going to call it HOI for Hearts of Iron 4. I'm just going to call it Tutorial 2024 Part 1. So I encourage you to call it something similar, save, and then it's going to make it much easier to follow along. If you were playing on Iron Man mode, remember we were showing you that before, you wouldn't have access to that save menu. The only option you would have available to you is to quit. And so that's going to be the end of the first episode. I'll see you on episode 2, where we'll continue right from where we left off here. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.